Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and I'm once again joined by Lawrence Connolly. Well, Lawrence, you were here yesterday to talk about the St Johnstone game. Today, we're going on to the second of our transfer bulletins, where we'll be asking the big question: will Celtic keep their prized assets? But now that the dust has settled after yesterday, Lawrence, and you've had a chance to look back on the action, which I know you do, what's your thoughts?
You know, it was relief. Now I've kind of come down off the ceiling. So I've watched the game twice on Sky Replay, and I watched the highlights twice on Sports Scene. You know, it was hard work, but the team kept going. It's great to have Griff back, isn't it? What a performance. The referee, Nick Walsh, it just gets worse and worse on every viewing. You know, his performance. The media coverage, surprise, you'd have thought there was only David Turnbull's bad tackle in the game when they go back to highlight it. How
can you focus on that when you think about the terrible tackles? Just let's pick one player from the St Johnstone team, Davidson.
You know, if that boy had 4 red cards, he was lucky. You know what I mean? It was that brutal. But even when Paddy scores, they just brush over that tackle. Mm-hmm. Jesus,
that was horrendous.
I mean, that belongs in the NFL. Or, see, what's that Vinnie Jones film where they take out the prison warders in a game of football?
What
it's
is
that kind
called?
Of tackle, isn't it?
Oh, wait a minute.
Is it Mean Machine or something?
Mean Machine, aye. But in fact, Simon Weir was in that film, as you know.
Yes, Big Simon.
Old Simon.
A teammate of yours in
yeah.
in Old Firm Legends in the Celtic side, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. He is.
Guy Simon.
He's a decent big player as well.
Better than that fullback they've got for Fife.
Oh, aye. Aye, we'll not get into that though, because the next time we play, remember, I'll be at peak fitness, Lawrence. It's been that long.
Well, you'll be short of match fitness, mate.
Aye, but I mean, talking of which, Lee Griffiths, right, let's have a wee talk about the impact that he made. And we were talking time and time again about the fact that he's better than a youngster on the bench, and I'm not taking anything away from the youth because it's so important to develop them, but at this stage of the game and this season of all seasons on a Celtic State of Mind, we're crying out for Lee Griffiths and Tommy Roderick to get back into that first team squad. I was delighted to see the pair of them making an appearance yesterday.
On the way through here, I was talking to Kevin Tate at the penalty spot. You know, Kevin knows a lot of the ex-players, and he pointed out something great about Griff. Is like, it's just the knowledge and his gamemanship. He knows the game so well, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. You can see Paddy's got a lot to learn. The shift that Griff put in when he was on the park was fantastic. We didn't even actually need him at match fitness because we only asked him to play a full match. You know, he could run about for that period of time and he wasn't going to blow himself out because he's up there. He was so happy to score, almost as happy as I was when he scored. You know, good to see Big Tom back. The players that are definitely going to add, they're guys that have been over the course. Mm-hmm. You know, they know what it takes to win a treble. It's great to see that, isn't it? Or a treble after treble. It's not just that they know what it takes to win trophies, but they know what it takes to win a treble, then another treble, then another treble.
Multiple trebles.
It was just great to see them in the team having such a positive effect. Turnbull, you know, a bit of a quieter game, I thought, than his 45 minutes. But, I mean, that was hard to play against. Anytime we get any kind of fluidity in our attacks, it was just brutal. And when we were closing them down, I mean, there was one, Mohamed El Hanous is just stand behind again, he falls over. Mm-hmm. I was watching again this morning and I can't even believe you've given a free kick for this ref. You know, he's just standing behind him, he's putting a bit of pressure on. There's literally nothing in it.
There was a few moments when Shane Duffy was penalised as well, Lawrence, for standing his ground or just challenging in the air. And then you look at quite a lot of the tackles that were coming in. The Klamala one was absolutely shocking. I mean, I seen it from a different angle this morning because Sky Sports certainly weren't showing us it from a different angle. And there's a point coming through actually from the viewers on social media in relation to the fact that when Davidson was finally yellow carded and the points coming in via Facebook, and it's Tam Mannion, so welcome to the show, Tam. When Davidson was finally yellow carded, it was actually his 4th yellow card offence. The first one against Frimpong, you know, and we didn't have the chance to see it again, Lawrence, but we were screaming for a red card.
Aye, we're screaming for it, and obviously we're aware that we've got a certain bias being Celtic fans.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've watched it twice.
That's where watching it at night, exactly, you get a wee bit of time to think about it.
So I watched it last night on the Sky recording, you know, on the Virgin box, watched Sports Scene, and then I watched both of them again this morning. Yeah. And I still think that first tackle was off the park. It's just so exasperating. To see that Scottish football's so backward, or the way that actually Celtic get treated. Let's just call it out for what it is. Because it's not every game that this happens.
No.
Aberdeen versus Hibs, that'd be a sending off. Mm-hmm. If it happened against Rangers, you know, that's a sending off, a ban, and 2 or 3 weeks worth of stories about how St Alfie get assaulted. You know, it happens against a Celtic player and we don't even get a replay in the camera.
No.
You know, it's...
I was annoyed because when we went up to Perth there, I was thinking back to the 1-0 game when Ryan Christie scored the free kick. One off, if not the last game I was at, actually, before the lockdown. I would need to check that. Up at McDermott in the Cup. And, you know, St Johnstone were well organised. They always were under Tommy Wright, as it was back then. And we've seen it again through Kilmarnock this season. We've seen it with Livingston, St Mirren. Teams are well organised, even in Europe, the last 2 games against Sarajevo and Riga as well, where they can defend well. And what I didn't like about yesterday's performance, I don't mind teams lining up like that because the onus is then on us. It's on us to break them down. People say it's anti-football. Sometimes it's the only football these teams can play. Every single point is a prisoner to these teams. So you think to yourself, right, I get that. However, what St Johnstone done differently was the discipline or the indiscipline of their players. They're going to hurt somebody, and unfortunately yesterday it looked as though it was going to be Frimpong if they continue to tackle like that. The tackle on Klamala again could have been a sending off. Yeah,
it's so bad. Mm-hmm. It's almost beyond belief that those. They talk about the 60s. Those tackles were commonplace.
You got a wee fright there. You got a fright there because you seen Cavani standing outside Celtic Park signing autographs.
I was like, wait a minute,
signing autographs.
Has he come to his senses and went?
Sky Sports really just pulled the rug from under our feet there, Lawrence, because Cavani was just shown outside Celtic Park, and the pair has done a double take. But they're obviously running with the Man United story, aren't they?
Aye, I think so. Yeah, I mean that tackle.
You think so? Is that confirmed?
Well, you know, I'm waiting for the phone to go and somebody send us a picture of it outside Celtic Park just now. But that tackle I can't remember a time it's ever been commonplace in football. A tackle like that, it's just so bad. But again, St Johnstone only play that way because the ref allows them away with it. He books the boy early for the Frimpong tackle. I think it's a red. Tam Mannion thinks it's a yellow, right? But he cards him out early, right? Mm-hmm. And stamps down in it. It's going to stop at Hampton for the rest of the 90 minutes, or Hampton as often. Mm-hmm. Certainly with Davidson, he'd have been off the park first half.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, definitely.
The rest of St Johnstone players, you know, they would tone it down a bit. As you say, teams they've got to be organised, they've got to compete, but if the ref's letting them compete like that, and that's the only way they can compete, they're going to do it. You know, it's a competitive nature.
They'll keep pushing it. They'll keep pushing it. Absolutely. The worst, for me, the worst decision was when wee Frimpong went on a Maisie. I think he took on 4 players. He was probably fouled 3 times in that one movement, all right? Initially, it was a bad tackle. He rode that challenge. Sometimes he can be a bit naive in riding the challenges rather than going down. But on a day like yesterday, I can see why he rode it, because we were getting nothing. He continues to go. Eventually, he's taken down just on the edge of the box. Now, the referee didn't signal that he was playing advantage. Yet he pulls it back to the first offence, so we lose about 15 yards.
Yeah, it's so basic, actually. It was funny, I was getting new blinds fitting in the house, and then Margaret from Brightside Blinds, she was in, and that's what she was doing. I'm not about, she's going, this is so basic. He sees the final fill, he blows for it, as you say, he hasn't signalled advantage, but he then decides to drag it back.
I know. Does Margaret watch A Celtic State of Mind, by the way?
Yeah, she recognised me from it. I was just like, you're the guy from a podcast.
Brilliant.
I was like, well, I'm one of them.
Brilliant, Lawrence. Love to hear it.
It's,
big shout out to Margaret.
Yeah, Brightside Blind's done a good job, mate, so I'm happy, big Celtic fan. So was the guy who was with her installing it. But yeah, it's so basic from a refereeing point of view, isn't it? It's do you know the regulations?
Basic and blatant. The
game I was in here before, the ref cut out a pass for Celtic player. Remember, was it Dallas cut it out?
Yeah.
So that's meant to be a drop ball for Celtic. No, he lets the attack go for Hibs, wasn't it? Yeah, there's things that they're not even getting the laws of the game right.
What I'm not going to do, Lawrence, is throughout a season like this where we're going for our 10th consecutive league title, potentially 5 trebles in a row, depending on how last season's Scottish Cup games go as well. All I hear is, how can referees be against or biased against Celtic when you are winning so many trophies? And I'm sorry, but you can't use that. That's not an argument. We're looking at the performance of that referee in isolation. We looked at the performance of Dallas against Dundee United in isolation, and you can pick holes in their performances quite easily. I mean, there's no consistency whatsoever. And it's right to highlight the poor performances of the officials. And I hope that Celtic do it as well. There's other ways to do it. Obviously, you can do it at the time. I mean, the issue with Dallas with the 10 yards from a free kick. Scott Brown came on late, and yesterday maybe I was guilty of saying, at least Brown can get on the top of this referee. There's other players in the park who should be doing it. Callum McGregor should be doing it. Ayer should be doing it. Duffy, and we need to get onto that like straight off the bat and put them under pressure.
No, definitely. I think we do need to put the refs under pressure. We need to highlight it, but there's things so blatant when they just don't apply the rules. And it's not that they don't know the rules. I'm pretty sure these guys go through some kind of grading and some kind of testing and have to pass a test on the rules. It's just that they seem to forget them when it comes to Celtic.
In opportune times, yeah.
They're kind of go, all right, he's filled up. I'm going to drag it back for that one. Or, all right, I cut that pass out. I won't do the bounce ball. I'll play it. And if you look at the Klamala tackle, he doesn't signal his playing advantage then until the ball was in the net.
No.
So it doesn't look like we were going to get a free kick. Because he's made a signal advantage straight away. Yeah. The ball hits the back of the net, then he signalled he was playing advantage. You're going, well, where are you, ref? Because when you're made a signal advantage, I know when you're made to signal it, and you've not signalled it until Klamala's hit the back of the net. There
are other, even within the Celtic support, who continually, easy for me to say, that was a treble, we're good at trebles in this show, use the quote from Jock Stein in relation to if you're good enough, the referee doesn't matter. There's plenty of other quotes around about that time where Jock Stein actually speaks about the officialdom of the SFA and the way that Celtic are treated. So I don't buy that for a moment. And also my big concern is going to be, yes, see when you're playing a team like, let's say, Dundee United, right? And you look at the fact that it was a last minute goal and it was a Yeti that came on and made the difference. Then yesterday, 2 last minute goals and Griffiths made the difference. Every single time we come up against issues like that, we can't expect always to win at the death and there always to be a hero. You would hope that we don't have to. Then you come up against, the bigger teams, the more difficult fixtures, such as the next one we're going to play, Lawrence. And that's where I start to become concerned. Yeah, there's more scrutiny, simply because there's a bigger TV audience, because there's no fans in the ground. So you're looking at that performance yesterday from the officials, and you translate or transfer that to the next game we play against Rangers. That's when I start getting concerned.
I know what happened next game. And it's happened the past few seasons. Every time a Celtic player passes the ball, the Rangers player will collect him after it. Bang, collect him after it. Before long, that will take its toll on players. You'll run a bit slower. They get away with coming in after the ball's gone all the time. Remember that pass that Brown done at Ibrox?
That was cheered because...
it was cheered.
Yeah.
Before they knew it stuck the ball in the back of the net.
Exactly.
But he collected Brown late. Mm-hmm. The ref never signalled advantage there either. So we know what's going to happen. They're going to take our players late. They're going to get away with it. The first time a Celtic player does anything remotely late or a foul, who's getting booked?
No, and it's a concern. And listen, I'm not getting any excuses in early, Lawrence. I think if we go toe-to-toe with Rangers, we'll beat them. We've got a better team of players. And I think, yesterday, it wasn't the best. Hibs previous to that in the league, we were looking good. We're still to click into top gear, but I still think we've got the personnel, even if it's a stodgy nothing each, to come on and make a difference. I said yesterday, actually, that we should start with 2 strikers, and I said it should be Edouard and Griffiths. It might have been the elation of the last-minute victory. I'm going to stick with it. I think that Griff should start.
Aye, I think you better start with him. We don't know where Jet is sitting, do we, in fitness-wise? Lenny said he might be back, might not be. Lenny, he's not going to give too much away before the game, is he?
I don't think so. I mean, talking of which, he doesn't give much away when it comes to signings either, Lawrence. He made a comment after the game, and we're going to be speaking about those comments because we are looking at the transfer window at the moment. This is our second transfer bulletin. We were joined a couple of hours back from Colin Watt. I think before we go any further, we need to say again, Sky Sports were a wee bit naughty there because we're sitting here with no sound and we see Cavani standing outside Celtic Park signing autographs. That's a bit cheeky.
Listen,
but of course he's signing for Manchester United, isn't he?
It's association, isn't it? They want to get him outside the big club.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the first thing that we're going to cover, Lawrence, is players that we've been linked to in this window. And there has been, in terms of the ones we've discussed in ACSOM, because I'm sure there's been a lot more, but we've discussed 18 different players, and that doesn't include the ones who went on to sign for us, because I know that we spoke about Duffy, we spoke about Ayeti, Turnbull, etc., even Barkas in advance of them coming in. So I want to look at some of the players that we've been linked to. I've already covered 6 with Colin Watt. The next 6 that I'm going to confirm, have a wee chat with yourself regarding is Robert Snodgrass, Casper Hoyer, Bright Osayi Samuel, Mitchell Baker, Barry Douglas, James McCarthy. Now, when you look at that list of players, obviously the one that was quite a hot potato yesterday was Snodgrass. What was your thoughts on Snodgrass when that story started to develop yesterday?
So we're struggling to break teams down. He's a winger. I think international he's 1 in 4 goals, isn't he? He's a goal scorer. He can change games. Big Celtic fan. I'd want to see him come in, but without anyone leaving. I think it'd be great as an addition. So
Colin suggested that he would only come in if someone left. Someone being probably Ryan Christie.
I don't know the financials at Celtic Park. We need to have a buyer for Christie, wouldn't we, before he goes? There doesn't seem to be a buyer there. So I think the board have looked at this and decided to make the best. This is the season we can win the 10, 4th and 5th trebles. Lenny's obviously got his input and he's maybe said, you know what, it's not projects we need this year. I mean, the standard of player we've been linked with, let's be honest. Snodgrass, Wilson, the boy for Juventus, Diego for AC Milan. I know there's been a lot of noise about Doughty for Charlton and Barry Douglas for Leeds, but the actual, when it comes round to where we're getting firm quotes from other clubs about us being interested in players.
Different standard entirely, isn't
it? They're guys that you could all make the case for they come in and start.
Yeah.
Every single one of them you could go, that's a starter, that's a start. They're all improving your first 11, which has got to be exciting. It shows the level of ambition, especially in time that the Celtic board are showing and management's showing, because we've got to be conscious of COVID. Cash flow in football's tight, but we're still showing an outstanding level of ambition this transfer window.
That you're right, it is. It has been a very ambitious set of signings when you look at the fact that we're signing straight from English Premier League clubs for a kick-off. We know that when you do that, then in terms of the actual cost, the bar's going up all the time, Lawrence. We're watching with interest developments in English football all morning this morning, and some of the transfer deals that are being done they're astronomical in their size. Of course they are, but if we were to go and get someone like Snodgrass and bring him from West Ham, we've already done that on a permanent basis with Ayeti. I think they only wanted to loan him out initially, didn't they?
Yep.
They've kind of made their feelings known that they would rather Snodgrass was leaving on a permanent basis. That doesn't really work for me at the age of 33 for Snodgrass. I would bring him in based on what you've just said there, this is a short-term deal because we know that what we've got to achieve this season. If it had to be a permanent deal, and I don't know what the transfer fee would be for someone like Snodgrass, I'd certainly not be prepared to be spending £5 million even on a player like Snodgrass at this stage.
I mean, Lube will come in at 33, so I suppose every player you've got to judge on their own merits. Is he fit enough? Much do we know about him? Where we're sitting, 33, how many years are we going to get out of him? Would he be as good as Lube? I highly doubt it, but, you know, we can all dream.
Would it be as good as John Spencer, though?
Well, we need to ask Mr. Keevins. He seems to know that, doesn't he? But West Ham wanting to leave him permanent, of course they do. You know, it's a liability off their books as far as they see it, isn't it? They don't see him as a starter for them. So they're thinking, well, there's a big liability off our books that will free up some cash for them to do whatever with.
Yeah.
So Celtic are, it's a short season in terms of loans. We've got 8 months left to the end of the season. We'll get, October, November, December, January, February, April, May. Yeah. So, so it's a short loan year to pay, if you like, that we're paying wages for. It's not the traditional kind of get them in. Well, we don't always get them in for Champions League qualifiers, but, potentially you're paying between 10 and 12 months normally. Mm-hmm. Now we're only going to be paying 8 months loan wages. So there's maybe that's allowed us to up our ambition. If we're to believed, Celtic's insurance policies covered them for this season. So although we're going to be impacted on terms of matchday sales, our business interruption policies apparently covering a big chunk of that. So maybe we've went, well, what we'd have spent on a 10 or 12 month loan, we can now spend on an 8 month loan. But it's obviously more money per month then. So then maybe that's why we've been able to up the standard. I mean, if you'd said we're going to take, potentially say we get Wilson, I've got Duffy, say we get Snodgrass, we buy Diego from AC Milan, and if the boy for Juventus wants to come, 2 from Serie A, 3 from the Premiership. It's a different level of what we've been operating in, isn't it?
No, you're
That's
right.
half your team. When
you're looking at the names I read out there, six names, some of whom came and went in a day, others who have hung around for a while, as in Barry Douglas. The interest in Douglas has been there for a bit. Snodgrass. It seemed as though it was genuine interest. Neil Lennon certainly wasn't giving too much away yesterday on that one. James McCarthy, it's a name that's been linked with Celtic time and time again. Do you think that of those, that Snodgrass is still the one that might be on the radar? Yeah, I think Snodgrass seems to be the one that's on the radar. I know Lennon says you won't get a straight answer for him, didn't he? Basically just, that's a polite way of telling the guy to go away and copulate, wasn't it? It was... I think it looks like that. But, we've got Diego. We've been asking about other wingers. If we're asking of somebody the standard of Harry Wilson, the UV winger, actually, maybe we've got a set higher. Maybe we're looking at bringing 2 wingers in. I always think wingers have great first seasons up here because the defenders haven't played against them in general. Don't know their tricks. Look at Sinclair's first season. Could we bring a winger in that could give us a first season like Sinclair gave us? I'd love to see it. And I think, the thing with the English market, Lawrence, is that their squads are so big. They buy in loads and like almost panic buys, and then you've got a player who is excelling with a Fulham, for example, because there's been a few players like Sessegnon or Paddy Roberts, and they get bought in and then they don't play for their parent club. There's loads of players like that I think Celtic can offer a lifeline to, in terms of bringing them in on loan, giving them games, giving them a European platform rather than playing under 23 football.
Yeah, players need to play to develop, don't they? We face that with our youths, and also these clubs face having a depreciating asset on their books that's not playing, his contract's running down and isn't in a short window. So it definitely benefits for them to come out. I mean, I'm surprised we've not had a Man City link so far. We normally seem to get linked with someone from Man City. I know Arzani didn't work out, but...
Oh, remember him?
I'd forgotten about him. With injury, wasn't he?
I'd forgotten about him. When you're looking at those on the radar, I think Snodgrass, there's probably a bit of work to be done on a deal like that. Of any of those names, is there anybody that you think to yourself, he's the one that got away? I mean, James McCarthy divided opinion when we spoke about him on the podcast. Is he a player that you would have liked to have seen in the hoops?
I'd have liked to have seen him in the hoops at some point. Yeah, I think he would have brought a lot to him. his Uncle Jerry would have been over him, and I know that. Jerry's a big Celtic fan, so is James, but yeah, it'd have been great to see James McCarthy in the hoops, wouldn't it?
Oh, I would have liked to have seen that. But again, like Snodgrass as well, the actual wages that these guys are on are astronomical, Lawrence, you know.
The time might have passed. I mean, with Eddie McGeady saying, he'd love to come back, but there's another guy.
Of course he would. So would Kyle. So would Baram Kyle.
Yeah, so Kyle, but actually, maybe have a wee look at Kyle, but for some people that time has passed, and maybe unfortunately the time's passed for McCarthy, I think.
I think so at Celtic. Just going to break for a moment to have a look at one of these messages coming in from Stephen Forbes on YouTube. Welcome back to the show, Stephen. You're commenting on YouTube, and for anyone who's watching on YouTube, please subscribe, because we are growing our subscription base on there. This is our second broadcast of the day. We did 3 yesterday. By the end of the day, we'll have done another 4 today, so that gives you the level of output from a Celtic State of Mind. Stephen says, Lawrence, great to see Paul, John and Lawrence are still pals after yesterday's reported flashpoint in the ACSOM studio.
Yeah, it was...
Would you like to comment on that flashpoint?
I think
Who were we falling out over? Greg Taylor?
Ayer and Taylor, and why St Johnstone had 2 free runners in the box at the beginning of the second half. And when you watch it back, it's Stevie May and the boy Conway, both of them are free. Ayer's then got to go and cover May, he leaves Conway. Greg Taylor's got to come in to try and get to Conway, and both of them, Ayer was nowhere near May, and you end up with Taylor nowhere near Conway. It was, and that's probably our only defensive lapse in that game. But I tell you what, it only takes one defensive lapse like that, could be a goal, and the way that ref's making decisions, that could have cost us.
You're then chasing it, aren't you? And again, they just close up at that point. They play with the 11 men behind the ball, and it becomes extremely difficult for Celtic then. It was difficult enough as it was without that. But that was the little mishap yesterday where Lawrence and I disagreed. Disagreed on who was to blame for that, but that's fine. A couple of other points coming through. Stephen Forbes once again. How do you think Eddie will respond to Lennon's public statements regarding his loss of form and focus during recent weeks of the transfer window? Lennon does seem to manage such situations effectively. I think I was bigging up Neil Lennon yesterday, wasn't I, in relation to his man management, because, as I said, I've been critical, not overly so. I mean, when Lennon took over, I wasn't one of the ones shouting from the rooftops that we should have brought someone else in, when he came back for the second spell permanently. I support Neil Lennon. I think the job he's done overall has been tremendous. I think the team that he's building, Lawrence, if he brings in another 2, he's basically brought in 7 first-team players in this window.
Yep.
Then you start seeing the team that Neil Lennon is trying to shape. But yesterday I did comment on the fact that he's brought back Lee Griffiths. He's managed that situation effectively twice, because he managed it last season twice and got him back in a jersey and scoring goals. He's done it again this season. I'm not giving all the credit to Lenny. A lot of that credit goes to Lee Griffiths himself, but Lennon has played a part in that. He's also played a part in being able to turn around the fortunes of Ncham, who was speaking to the French press this time last year, talking his way out of Celtic Park. Tommy Rogic in transfer talks, everybody was resigned to the fact that he was leaving. Not only has he remained at Celtic Park, but Neil Lennon's got him back on the pitch playing again. I think he does manage situations like this very effectively, and he's maybe trying to take the heat off of Eddie a wee bit by saying that, he didn't say it's turned his head. He just said that, the transfer talk this window has affected him, and I think that's understandable for a guy who is, still young. People forget sometimes how young Odsonne Edouard is. Yep.
Lennon knows what he's doing in man management, and it could be taking the heat off him. Maybe Eddie's just genuinely going through a wee dip in form. He's been top notch since he's arrived, hasn't he? Could it just be a dip in form and Lenny's just saying this will take the heat off you a bit, we'll give you a bit of break? Maybe. I don't know, but I think you've touched on the points. Lenny's man management of people has been proven to be second to none. So, yeah, we'll go with what Lenny's doing. I think, on his track record, he's got the mercurial Tom Rogic back in the park. Lee Griffiths back scoring goals. I like Griffiths' comment. Lenny said to me, as long as I'm at Celtic Park, you'll be here.
Where have we heard that one before?
I was like, there's a familiar ring to that. Yeah. Is that Lee getting a wee dig in?
I hope so.
It'd be nice. Well, I know he listens to this show, so maybe he's heard us chatting about it.
Lee Griffiths does listen to the show, and thankfully the time they tuned in, I was bigging him up. I was saying get him back in the team. So yeah, we're big fans of Lee Griffiths in here, of course. It's decorating, comment on YouTube. I find it remarkable how well Celtic players keep their discipline in the face of shocking roughhouse tackles week in, week out. Incidentally, when you look at yesterday, that's a great point. Celtic did keep their discipline. It'd have been easy for there to have been a few flashpoints.
Cham lost it a wee bit, right? And it actually wasn't losing his... The boy pulls him, he pulls him, and Cham gets a yellow card. So there was really nothing in it on replay. But the boy commits the first foul. When he gets smashed in the face, Cham kept his discipline. Frimpong, you're just kind of... What would it take to get out of the guy to react?
I know.
He just gets up with a smile on his face, doesn't he? You're going... if they'd done it in the street, it's assault. I
mean, the tackles yesterday were... shocking, and I think when Davidson comes away at the end of the game talking about how proud he is of his players, it shows you how they've lined up. Lawrence have come out to hurt somebody.
Listen, the tackles get progressively worse, I think, and it's a signal for the ref if he lets the first one go, doesn't it?
They're pushing it, yeah, pushing it.
So Davidson asked him to play on the edge because they need to play on the edge to get any kind of result. Let's be honest, because if they stand off us and watch us, they're going to take a doing, aren't they? So they're going to press hard on us. We did the three forwards chasing down, which was a high press. They've got those three forwards going. It's brave, for St Johnstone committing the three forwards, but when the ref allows them to overcommit all the time, it is dangerous, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
You're just wondering how long it is before Frimpong gets a serious injury.
Well, we've seen him being injured before, and I remember when he was stretchered off the park that night, thinking it was a lot worse than it was, Lawrence. But see, these are the things, talking about injured players, we're going to get onto another one in a second, because I was talking earlier on to Colin Watt about the transfer business that Celtic have done so far, and the two players that he was speaking about were El Yunusi and Barkas. Well, the two players I'm going to speak to yourself about that we've purchased and brought in this window is Albion Ayeti, £5 million from West Ham United, and David Turnbull for around £3 million from Motherwell. How well do you think these two guys have done since they've come in? How impressed have you been?
Albion Ayeti's on fire, mate. He's what we've been missing. He's a penalty box striker that he'll drop deeper, but he likes to play between the posts, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. He'll sniff out a chance. He's just going to score goals all day long up here. What competition it is we've got in the forward line, isn't it? It's very impressive.
Phenomenal. I mean, four strikers, and the one of those four who maybe at the beginning of the season, first couple of weeks into the season, Lawrence, that I was saying that I was doubtful that he had what it took to be a Celtic striker, was indeed Klimala. But when a boy is putting that much effort in to try and stake his claim, then you've got to take your hat off to him. I mean, that show yesterday of bravery, tenacity, and finishing ability once he actually got back off the turf was brilliant. It was absolutely outstanding. And that's the kind of attitude that I think Neil Lennon's been seeing at training, isn't it?
Well, we talk about attitude. Look what he'd done in close season outside of Celtic. Look at the muscle that boy put on.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that Mikey Johnson's going to take a leaf out of his book, and when we see Mikey back, we're going to get another boy that's bulked up and able to handle himself in the park. Because it's attitude you need, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
You need that drive, you need that commitment.
I mean, he's sitting there, you're looking at Edouard, who's the first choice without a shadow of a doubt, and then the club brings in another player, £5 million international player from the English Premier League. So a guy like Klimala must be looking at that thinking, well, I'm at least the third choice, and Griffiths is getting fit to come in as well. But the attitude and the application's been absolutely brilliant. So yes, I've got to admit, he's completely turned me around. And I don't want to say Eddie's one, Ayeti's two, etc., and work my way through the four. I'm just happy to have four strikers who are all pushing for a first team jersey.
It's great. The amount of games we're going to have, the treatment that strikers are going to take on the park, we're going to need them, aren't we?
I think we will. Yeah.
How did Klimala walk away for that tackle?
Well, the thing is, we don't know if he's been hurt. I think the way that he rode the challenge meant that he didn't fall awkwardly. Otherwise, you're looking at a leg breaker.
Do you think it's because he was on the turn and was able to ride it a bit better?
I think so. It was well played. He's seen him coming.
Aye.
He's seen his teammates getting booted for 90 minutes. He knew it was coming.
Oh, aye. You're a Celtic player. You've got to know that you're going to be taking kicks.
It was like when Bobby Lennox broke his leg and he was asked, when did you realise your leg was broken? The minute I saw John Gregg coming towards me, was his answer.
Get sent off for having his leg broken? He gets sent off for having his leg broken?
For having his leg broken.
Aye.
So it was one of the ones. Klamala seen him in the corner of his eye and he's ridden the challenge really well.
I really like Paddy. You know, he's got a lot to learn. He's 22, 23. We're looking at Griff coming to the end of his career. We know Eddie's not going to be here forever. Ayeti will hopefully be here a bit longer. You know, we didn't really get his chance, but he's been at a Premier League club, hasn't he? And it didn't work for him. He seems to be enjoying his football up here. The sound bites from him are all good. I suppose it's going to be when you're almost a goal a game, isn't it?
The big thing about Ayeti, I still think that he's in that category, Lawrence, is if he has 2 or 3 good seasons at Celtic, prolific seasons, and he performs in Europe, he's another one of the guys who might make that transition. And as Celtic supporters, we understand and accept that happens. So you've got a good mix there, haven't you? You've got Edouard, who's probably 2/3 or 3/4 of his way through that transition before moving on. You've got Ayeti just at the beginning of that. Klamala's certainly in development, and you've got Griffiths, who I think, if all goes well and he finishes his career at Celtic, then he's properly turned it around. I'd much rather that than see him disappear down the leagues or end up on loan somewhere.
It'd be really sad. I mean, there's some players that have left us recently that have just bounced from club to club, and you thought, geez, you were a cracking
We were asking
striker.
earlier about Stokesy. Where's Anthony Stokes?
Where's he gone? You know, it didn't work at Livy. I don't know where he's went now. But he was great to watch play football. I mean, he had a cracking attitude when he was on the park, didn't he? I mean, remember at Rugby Park, he dragged his track 3 straw. Him and Hooper, what a partnership. You know, Republic Island internationalist. And yeah, you maybe Stokes is happy with what he's doing. I don't know. You know, he's had documented problems, hasn't he? Maybe the desire's gone. I don't know. But I'd rather see him making the best of his talent and scoring goals at top level football.
He could still do it, certainly at the top level of the Scottish game, I think, Lawrence. And when he went to Livingston, people's kind of take on that was that, you know, you lose Lyndon Dykes, you bring in Stokes, you maybe play in a certain way that Stokes won't like, and it won't be suited to him. The reason given for him departing after 3 weeks was the pitch, but he knew they had a plastic pitch before he signed.
You see the top level of the Scottish game. What players have performed badly up here, strikers, but have went down south and even performed in the Premiership or the Championship?
You've got
Pookie, haven't you?
Pookie, we've seen him yesterday.
Who was the Irish boy for Celtic? Was top scorer? Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've had a few played for Safeco that went down and went for.
Next thing you know, Murphy's scoring 20 odd goals a season for Ipswich. They're talking about £8 million moves for him at that point.
I can't remember the Safeco players' names, but I think Safeco got rid of him for like a few 100,000, but they get moves for like 5 or 6 million.
Waghorn went down there and started scoring goals.
Chip Shop Tyson.
Yeah.
Yep. It's,
no, you're right. You're right.
Waghorn's not the player Stokes he is. Don't think he's ever had the talent that Stokes has got in his boots, has he?
I looked at Stokes when he came to Livy and I was just glad he was back in the game. There's certain players, and probably Griffiths comes into this category, that you develop an affinity with them. Sometimes, Lawrence, it's because they're a wee bit unhinged at times. Sometimes it's because they make mistakes and errors, often away from the park, not very often on it, when you think about the record of Griffiths and Stokesy as players for Celtic. But you realise that they're just humans like you and me, and they make mistakes and they mess up sometimes, and you're willing to forgive them because how they perform on the field they play. And I was hoping that Stokes was back. The last I heard, and I'll need to check, that Robbie Fowler was trying to take him back over to India.
Listen, if that's what Stokes wants, but he's definitely got talent, should still be playing football, hasn't he? And you're saying definitely top level of the Scottish game. I think we'll look at the people that have left here, low level Premier League or top level of Championship. If he got his chance in there, he would score goals.
Well, here we go now, Lawrence. We're talking about the players we've brought in, and we've had a wee chat already about Ayeti. I know that Turnbull, you're a big fan of Turnbull. Yesterday, what I found very interesting is, after all the shocking tackles from the St Johnstone players, the actual analysis after the game looked at a tackle that Turnbull had made and were asking, should it have been a red? I find that astonishing.
Yeah, I wonder why they chose just to highlight that tackle as opposed to the potential. Well, one St Johnstone player could have about 4 red cards, just one of them. You know, the tackle on Kamal's just airbrushed.
I know.
why would they pick the Turnbull one to suggest that, the ref had a decent game, was fairly even-handed? There's a definite agenda out there. We're not part of the mainstream media, but we know there's an agenda out there. Unrelentingly anti-Celtic and pro-Rangers.
Oh yeah, I mean, and again, the thing with that, Lawrence, is that they can't fail. Certainly on the digital side of it, because Celtic fans, they read a story, they react to it in the event, and I can understand that. So they're still getting their traffic, because people are engaging then, aren't they, on social media and clicking links to read the stories. But with regards to the fact that obviously Turnbull and Cham came in for Christie and Brown was rested. We certainly didn't call it dropped yesterday. He was rested yesterday. There was a lot of Celtic fans. There's a train of thought that Celtic play more high tempo football if Brown's not on the park. But to be honest with you, we needed him on the park to turn it around.
I don't think we could get any tempo going in that game yesterday. It was because of the amount of fouls and the way the ref was letting the St Johnstone players break up the flow. Brown's one of those players that just makes everybody 10% better, doesn't he? He makes the team tick. At certain times, the ball is moved quicker when he's not there, but sometimes it's not about moving the ball quicker, it's about moving it to the right place, about driving your teammates on, making them move quicker. Because a couple of times, more than a couple of times yesterday, we were very static when we bring the ball out for the back. You were looking, and there's maybe 6 or 7 Celtic players in the camera shot, one with the ball, another 6 not moving, and you're going, you know what, you're going to have to give them something to aim for here, to run. It can't always be ball to feet. Brown definitely drives a player on. I mean, Andy Walker was talking about it, that you can use to bully him into playing better, make him move, and maybe some players just need someone on the park forcing them on, because we don't have the fans in the grounds, cheering Celtic on. It's well documented by former players and players that they do give something extra to the Celtic team. The backing of the fans, that's missing. Brown's giving it when he's on the park. He was orchestrating it, wasn't he?
He certainly was. And, similarly to the goal that was scored against Dundee United, and we famously heard Bruni's shouts to Edward, the first person to congratulate Griffiths after the goal was the one and only Scott Brown, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's a winner. He's an out-and-out winner. Many medals is it now?
I'm losing count. 20 odd.
He's catching up in Bobby Lennox on appearances. He'll become part of the 600 club, won't he?
He will, yes. I mean, I think yesterday was his 586th game off the top of my head. So yes, he will certainly break through the 600 barrier this season.
Yep.
All going to plan, Lawrence. And you're then into that situation where he's 35 years of age. I think he turns 35 in June there. And people ask, how long can Brown continue to play? He can continue to play for as long as he can come on and influence the side as he did yesterday. It doesn't always have to be with the ball at his feet. I think that was a big thing yesterday. Yeah, he did some great stuff with the ball at his feet, but it was the influence when he came on. It was the way that he was able to re-energise the team in the last 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you heard Billy McNeil speaking, he regretted retiring so early. Players used to think 32, that's my career over. But if players look after themselves, they're more into sports science, they can go on for longer now. Brownie has apparently always been a really naturally fit guy since he was young. I think back to Gordon Strachan, 40 years old, playing in the Premier League, he looked after himself. Pietro Vercovod, 40 years old, Serie A. Any reason Scott Brown couldn't emulate him?
You look at some of the great players on the continent like Mateus and Maldini, and they all played right into their late 30s, early 40s, and I'm not comparing them as players to Brown, but it shows that when you're conditioned and you look after yourself in the latter part of your career, how it can extend that. I think with Brown, we'll probably get to the stage where season on season, the player and the club would be happy to look at an annual deal, a 12-month contract, and even in the final season or seasons of that arrangement, if he was only playing 20 games a season, to have him in the changing room, to have him in the dugout, This is yesterday shows the influence that he has.
Naka still does it, doesn't he? In Japan.
Still plays, eh?
There's another, but it doesn't come on often, but he's at the club for influence now. He scored though this season, but it doesn't come on often.
Was that a free kick?
Plays. Yep. There was another boy in Japan played in his 60s just for his influence, the first Japanese player to go to Brazil. So, there's players that have done it in the past in football, and why not Scott Brown?
Well, I think there's going to be a transitional period between being a player and moving into the coaching. I know that he's been doing some coaching at Celtic. So, yeah, he's there as an influence. He's still there as a player. Yesterday showed that. And let's just enjoy it, because, I mean, there's no other player I would want to lead that Celtic side out than Scott Brown when we come up against Rangers in a couple of weeks.
I'll tell you something. I'm glad that he didn't go to Australia when it looked like our manager was trying to sell him.
Mm-hmm.
For God knows for what reason. But there was certainly, there was things going on in the background at that point, wasn't it? With Brendan when he was trying to get Scott to move.
Aye, there certainly was. Now, loads of great points coming through, so let's work our way through some of them. Lawrence, follower Celtic on Twitter. Christie and Cham, Dembele and possibly Aya will be pressuring for a move. Is the interest strong enough? Well, it was something I was going to ask you the question about. Will anyone leave? That's a big question in this transfer window. Will anyone leave? And the quotes from Neil Lennon at the last point of asking was that no, he was confident that the players quoted and the players who have been mentioned in dispatches were going to stay. He was very confident that they were going to stay at Celtic as well, Lauren. So I think the ones that have been linked to other clubs are players like Aya, linked to AC Milan. And it's a solid link. It's a confirmed link, confirmed by Maldini, although I see that Milan are currently tying up a deal for a defender. So that may actually put paid to the Ayer deal, which is good news for Celtic, if you ask me. And Cham, Edouard, Christie are the other ones that have been quoted. Dembele, I would like us to keep Dembele, but perhaps loan him out and get him some games, Lawrence, because to be honest with you, he's not done enough to be on that bench and for us all to be crying out for him to come on and make an impact. So I think put Dembele out on loan for the rest of this season. But the other four, let's have a look at the other four. If you were able to choose one, if one had to leave of the four that I've mentioned, who would that one player be, Lawrence, and why?
It wouldn't be French Eddie. So let's start rolling them out and then we'll be left with one. Right, French Eddie, he's just too important to the team. He's up. Bit of dip in form, but his goals, he's just undoubted talent, creating goals out of nothing. Wouldn't let him go. Wouldn't let Christie go. He's the guy that does what Lenny wants. Lenny talks about moving the ball quicker, taking risks. It's not always the safe football we had under Brendan Rodgers, back to back, side to side. So we're 5 yards forward, move the ball, recycle it. Christie moves it a bit quicker, so he's got goals in him. He sets his when his mind's on it. He's a cracking player for us, isn't he? He can set players up. I'd keep Christie. So I leave in Cham or Aya, and I think because we're short at the back, I'd keep Big Aya. Very flexible. I think he's really unlucky. He gets played at left centre back. I think he's naturally right sided. We can right back. I think cracking player. You remember against St Johnstone and Aberdeen, brilliant. Even yesterday when he was out in the wing, that wee touch with the ball, just class, wasn't it? But it's on to Al-Hamid and bang, we've got a goal. And I think Cham would probably be the one to let go, just because we're so well covered in midfield. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the area where we're strongest. It's probably the player out the four that's worth the least as well. I don't think we'll get as much money as we get for the others. If we want to touch on Dembele's situation, with him, if we loan him out, it can only be if he signs another contract, because otherwise there's no benefit to Celtic other than getting his wages paid. Right? Mm-hmm. You never know. If we keep him, he is a guy that maybe could come on and change something. We don't know how this season's going to go with injuries. We just don't know. If you're putting him out on loan, there really is no benefit to Celtic unless he signs another contract. It doesn't look like he wants to sign another contract. It's a bit of a Mexican standoff. So I think one way or the other, I don't think if Dembele doesn't sign the contract, he's not going to be here, is he? So he'll see this season out. I don't see he's putting him on loan, because why would we? There's zero benefit if he doesn't sign a contract.
The thing with Dembele is, you're right, it is a standoff, because if he doesn't play because he's thinking to himself there's no point in going on loan, or of the club are not prepared to put him out on loan, knowing that when he comes back he's out of contract, then at that age I think it's a big mistake, because you've got to be playing at that age. Lawrence, you can't go for 6 months and no play, or just play development football, of which there is none. You think to yourself, a guy training for 6 months, you lose a bit. You lose a bit of that sharpness.
He needs competitive first-team football. There's no doubt. Is he going to give way and say, well, put a release clause in my contract? Would that be a compromise? Because there's going to have to be some kind of compromise, isn't there? The optimum for both club and Dembele involves him playing, doesn't it?
It would.
So it involves him playing out on loan.
Yeah, on loan.
Celtic would need him to sign a contract to do that. So Dembele's got to say, well, what kind of contract would I be signing? What's going to be an offer from at the end of this season? And we know how football works. There's Cavani outside Celtic Park again, but there will be other clubs have talked to him unofficially, or talked to his agent or his dad, or there'll be something going on in the background. We're in October. Is it January he could sign a pre-contract then? Maybe he's having a look at that and going, it's 3 months away. I don't know. It's a sad way for his departure to come for Celtic, because I can't see anything but him leaving at the end of this season.
See, when you look at some of the players that have left the Scottish game of a similar age recently, you've got some Celtic players who have obviously gone to Bayern Munich, and Conor McBride has gone to Blackburn Rovers, Aaron Hickey's gone to Bologna. Now, when you look at those players, the only one that has gone and has been signed as a first-team player has been Aaron Hickey. The reason for that being that he had played around 30 competitive games for Hearts.
Yep.
The rest of them, haven't played a single game. And Dembele has played a handful of games. So I don't know what he would expect if he was to leave, Lawrence. Because if he goes to any other club, he's going to be playing under 21 or under 23 football. You
don't know what the promise is to him, obviously. There's a better route to first team in Germany than there is in Scotland, or they're able to sell it better. Mm-hmm. The problem with Scotland is we don't have that. There's a gap between, say, the ages of 17 and getting to the first team. There's a gap that's not getting filled. He needs to play. And it looks like he's decided it's not going to be in Scotland. It looks like internationally he's plumped for England. I just kind of think it's a very sad situation that he couldn't sign another contract, whether it's a release clause or whatever it is. Look what Stylian Petrov done when his contract was up. He signed another contract, so he knew he was leaving, but he wanted Celtic to get a fee. Both parties are losing out at the way it's sitting just now, but I just don't see him being at Celtic Park next season, which is sad.
It's very sad because we've spent a lot of time kind of thinking, well, this is not going to go the same way as Islam Feruz. We're actually looking at a situation where he's going the same way as Islam Feruz. I remember speaking again, and I've mentioned this, but for anyone who didn't tune in when I did mention it, I spoke to Gordon Strachan, who obviously was at Celtic when Feruz was a young kid, and he said to me that when he heard that Celtic, I think, had got 300 grand for Feruz, he said it was a great bit of business, and it's been proven as such because the boy did nothing in football. He did nothing after he left Celtic. And that's the biggest fear for young talent, and there's no doubt that Dembele is a young, prodigious talent. I mean, the buzz and the hype around that guy has been unbelievable since he was in his, young teenage years. So I would find it very difficult to accept that you invest that amount of time and money into a young kid and belief, and he walks away potentially for nothing. And he might have big wages for 5 years, yep, Lawrence, as Islam Feruz did, but Feruz now is just playing football with his mates. He's 24 years of age.
It's definitely not the career he dreamed he was going to have, is it? Mm-mm. Where Dembele goes, who knows? I don't know who's advising him, who his agent is. I heard the rumour it was the same as Moose's and Edwards, but I don't know if that's true. If it is, I would be surprised because he seems to have managed Moose and Edwards' career really well. I'd be surprised that he wasn't giving that service to his other players.
Absolutely.
But maybe I've got kind of Celtic coloured glasses on. Maybe there's something lined up big for Dembele to be. We don't know.
Well, what I'll say, on closing on that subject, Lawrence, what I will say is I've been bigging up Neil Lennon with his man management of several players within his time at Celtic, and particularly in his second spell that he's had to deal with situations like the Lee Griffiths scenario last season and this season. And I wouldn't write off that situation just yet because Lenny, you just never know. He might be able to turn it around.
Say, it doesn't look like, I don't think he'll leave this transfer window, okay? Who knows? Tackles that are getting in here. We don't get our winger targets.
We've already lost Forrest. you know.
So that he's
Mikey
already one step
Johnson's,
closer.
yeah.
Yep. So he may come off the bench and turn it around like Christie did when he looked like he was on his way out of the club, didn't he?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
was it get injured, the boy that was away to Belgium? That was Hadji's replacement in Belgium, Kouassi. Get injured. Just as he looked as if he was going to come on to a run of form. And Christie comes on, changes the game. Never looked back.
Changes his life.
Yeah, never looked back. Dembele, let's hope he has a moment like that this season.
It would be great. I'd much rather see him in the hoops, Lawrence. I really would. Now, when you look at the players we've already shipped out, it's sometimes quite surprising when you go through the amount of players that we ship out on a year-to-year basis. 26 players so far. A lot of them were coming to the end of their contract. A lot of them were kids that have been loaned out as well. There's been 12 loanees, so 12 players out on loan at the moment. Only 8 of the 26 could be classed really as first-team players. Lawrence, is there any from that 8 that you think could have still done us a turn? Do you think you would have kept at least one of them?
Big Fraser could have done us a turn, couldn't he? It all seems to have turned sour though, doesn't it? Not answering Lenny's calls.
Yeah.
We've got Barkas now, so let's just forget him. But I thought, there's another player that I can see why he went. He was dreaming of getting back in the England team, wasn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Forgetting he need to get in the Southampton team first. But it's kind of not worked for him. I feel sad for him because I think he was really good when he was at Celtic, but you know, Lenny said he wouldn't pick up the phone to him. How hard would it have been to pick up the phone to Lenny and go, look, Lenny, I want to try down here to try and get back in my England place. This is what it's going to be. Because from the quotes in the paper, it just seemed as if he cut communication, which...
Even that, I felt that was a bit unusual because we had... Some time ago now, we had David Curry on as a guest on a Celtic State of Mind. David Curry is the keyboard player from the Scottish band, the Supernaturals. And he is Stevie Woods' cousin. Yeah, he's his cousin, not his nephew. One or the other, I think it's his cousin. Blood relative anyway. And he spoke about the fact that Stevie Woods and Fraser Forster had remained in regular contact throughout his time after leaving Celtic. So if there was a message to deliver, it would have been delivered pretty easily.
Yeah, you'd have thought so. It's when we hear Lenny speak, it seems that Celtic were of the understanding it was coming back up, and then that understanding, it maybe was too hard for him to break that it wasn't coming back up. Maybe he felt really bad about not coming back up. I don't know, but he's probably the player that I would have said, yeah, we could have done with keeping him.
The other one being, and it's great with hindsight because obviously we didn't know Bolingoli was going to do what he did. Is Johnny Hayes. People have mentioned him. No, I'm not saying that Hayes was a world beater, but what I am saying is we've got one left back at the club.
Yep. Hayes, great attitude. I think you've touched on it. You know, other players like Paddy Kamara, he worked his socks off for Celtic, didn't he? I can see why we let him go. He's getting to the end of his career. We didn't know Bolingoli was going to do what he was going to do, but apparently we've been after a left back for a while. Let's be honest. It's kind of December, January, Bolingoli had lost his place in the team. So 9 months ago now. I mean, if we've been lining up Diego all this time and kept it quiet, brilliant. But I think everybody's kind of said, look, that's really where we need cover. But would I have kept Hayes? Well, then we might not have got cover in. I think Hayes was sold. I think when New Bolingoli was going out, I mean, who goes to Spain for a one-day holiday? You're not telling me he wasn't speaking to a football club over there unofficially.
Oh, well, that was the first thing that came to my mind, Lawrence. And that even then you think to yourself, what's the point in being there in person? We're all Zoomers these days, you know?
Some more Zoomers than others, you know, especially social media. But yeah, maybe he wants to be in there in person because he wants to see where he's going to be living. He wants to have a good look about. I don't know, but I think he was over talking to another club. I mean, he's going to stand out. He's got to know that. He's playing for Celtic. How daft is it going to be to fly out of a Scottish airport?
Pretty daft.
You know, you're kind of going, is your agent's not even a word? Listen, don't leave for Scotland because you're going to be spotted. But no, so I definitely wouldn't have kept Bolingoli. Definitely not.
No, you're right. I don't think anyone will disagree with that, Lawrence.
I wouldn't have been disappointed to see him stay, but I think we've always known that we're going to bring someone else in for that position. Taylor looks like a development player for us. I like Taylor. He's a trier. He gives everything on the park. He never hides. Will he ever develop into much better than he is? Time will tell. Hopefully the coaches can work with him and make him a better player. But, if Diego comes in, are we really crying for Johnny Hayes?
I love how you're calling him Diego.
Mate, I'm just disappointed. Well, I'm not disappointed for him, differently, but see if that number 10 shirt had been free for him. Diego 10.
You might not remember this. You may not remember this, but back in Jim Leishman's time, and I should have asked him when he came into the studio a few weeks back, Dunfermline Athletic put on trial Diego Maradona's son. Yeah. He was in his early 20s. They brought him to Fife and he was training at Petrivi training pitches, and there was this great marketing idea whereby they could sell Dunfermline Athletic jerseys with Maradona 10 on the back, but then they realised the boy couldn't play football. He's still playing.
Yep.
But he was at Petrivi training grounds, Maradona, and they were looking at that. I do remember also Falkirk signing a player called Pele, and with the idea that you could have the 10 Pele on the back of your Falkirk jersey.
Was there not George Weir's cousin got a trial or a game somewhere or a contract?
That was Souness that signed him for Southampton.
Souness and dodgy contracts, who would believe it?
Who'd have thought?
At least
that's
it wasn't
another podcast. That's another podcast, aye. Francie W, you're commenting on YouTube. Welcome back, sir. Watched the highlights last night and looked as though they edited the game in the ref's favour. Surprised not. This is a big thing because I certainly don't want to come across as paranoid, Lawrence, but the coverage yesterday, there was loads of flashpoints. We wanted to see them closer. We're asking maybe that there was a reason for that free kick getting pulled back 15, 20 yards, but we didn't get an opportunity to see it.
Sky's coverage is shocking. I don't know whether they just see us going like... BT's was much better. Maybe Sky going like, if we take those highlights off of Scotland, it'll keep a competitor out of the market. Because, let's be honest, they give us very little money. The coverage is pretty poor. Saying that it was even worse than pretty poor, wasn't it? I think Francis is right. It definitely looked like it was edited, or they were only covering certain things or replaying certain things to favour the ref.
And they've gone and shown us Cavani outside Celtic Park today, and the pair of us almost fell off our chairs.
Yeah, it is.
Aye, but then we realised it was archive footage. Now, Pat Bairns commenting on YouTube, best moment of the league season this season, seeing the Griff back, what a player. And Gary Doonan goes on to comment, Lee Griff is only 30. If you remember the Martin O'Neill team, most of our big hitters, Henrik Lambert, Sutton Lennon and Jackie, were in their 30s. The year before, Lubo and Tom Boyd were 36.
Yep. Tom Boyd was almost non-playing captain, wasn't he?
When you think about that, you've got your Scott Brown, you've got this influence. We're talking about the influence of Brown. The fact that wee Griff scores and Brown's the first up to pat him on his wee belly and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, Brown, if he moves, if he makes that transition onto the coaching staff, which I think, and I hope that he does, and you imagine Brown going from 36 to 40, whereby Lee Griffiths as a player is going from 31 to 35, that might even aid that. It might even aid Lee Griffiths' playing career.
But Griff doesn't have a big frame, does he?
No.
So you'd think that he'd be able to play for longer, I think.
His game's never been... You're right, his game's never been based on the physicality of it.
It's like someone like Hartson had a lot to carry about with him, if you know what I mean. He was a big guy, wasn't he? It seems the bigger guys struggle to go on longer. You know, Griff's a slightly built guy, I would say. Svelte compared to you and me. Well, svelte compared to me, but I think, why couldn't Griff play to 35? I definitely can see Bruni. I don't see any reason why Bruni couldn't hit 40 and playing.
Well, see the thing with regards to that, when you're looking at the focus and the emphasis now on sports science, and when you play for a club like Celtic, the fact that you're going in and you're eating a very specific diet at the club launch, you've got the facilities, you've got the specialists who are able to keep you right and advise you on your conditioning, then I don't think, unless barring serious injury, there's any excuse for any player not to play up to 35 at that level.
Definitely. Callum's doing a bit more of his running for him, although Lennon says there's stats to disprove that. But, Bruno was imperious on that part, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. It was orchestrating everything when he came on. No one could live with him. No one was at that level on the part, was he? I mean, Griff had done well when he came on, but I think Brown was head and shoulders above everybody as a footballer. We could see that. And I genuinely think, that boy could play his 40 easy. As you say, as long as Barry an injury, why not? He's a top-class footballer. No doubt there must have been interest for him in the Premiership at some point, and he's decided to stay at Celtic. We've seen him with cracking games against top-class European opposition. Yeah, I think he'll be here long-term, which probably there's going to be a load of Celtic midfielders disappointed about. It's already a hard place to get a game. With Callum McGregor, Scott Brown. Mm-hmm. There's one place up for grabs there, isn't there?
Well, Lawrence, we're coming to the end of part 2 of our transfer deadline bulletins today, of which there will be 4. It looks as though we're well on our way to signing Diego Lazolt from AC Milan. That will fill in the left back position that we've been lacking in left backs all season, really. Where else do you think we're going to strengthen before the end of the 4th bulletin at midnight tonight?
Without doubt, we're looking at wingers. So we've been linked with Harry Wilson, the boy from Juve, Robert Snodgrass. So I think we're definitely looking at wingers, and wingers of high calibre. So I think it'll be another loan, and I could potentially see another loan at left centre half coming in. Celtic will be willing to do that. I think we'll have 3 in before the end of the transfer window. I think that would be our aim. If we get everything we're going for, I think that's the 3 positions we'll fill.
I asked you earlier if you were to pick one player from the 4 that keep being mentioned in terms of a departure, who would it be? Do you think we will lose any of those 4?
I don't think so. I think the squad's, I think they're in a good place. As much as everybody in Scottish media is trying to sell, let's narrow it down. Who have they not tried to sell in the Celtic team or the Celtic first team squad? Mm-hmm. They've not tried to sell Greg Taylor or anyone else.
Yeah, just about everybody's been connected or linked to someone. I mean, my big thing again in the next couple of weeks, what we're going to get, Lawrence, is we're going to get some bombshell story to try and unsettle the Celtic side before the Rangers game.
Well, it's been a few months since we've had a cracked crest, hasn't it? The media must be itching for it. What's going to be the bombshell story with the cracked crest? I don't know, but yeah, listen, the media will make up something. We've got our Mole Inside Celtic Park story, which I think Lenny and whoever is kind of in charge of things just now have certainly tied up in the information. I mean, Harry Wilson, that's only broke when it's been confirmed. There wasn't kind of the rumours round about it for a while. Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. Everybody knew we were going to sign Turnbull, didn't they?
Diego Lazolt, I mean, when you look at that as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we actually had Stevie Ray coming on to our broadcast and recommending him. I don't think it was due to the fact he had heard there had been a rumour, and we're right down the line with that deal before it breaks.
But before it breaks in the Scottish mainstream media, and I'll tell you probably why this is. They can either do some work and get their investigative journalism going and use sources, or they can just go with the tried and tested Celtic bad, Rangers good, and bang that out. I don't know, it's been a while since I've read one of their articles, but it couldn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes, could it?
No.
And pick up their cheque at the end of the week. And I think that's just how poor the general journalism or sports journalism is in Scotland at the moment. They've got a tried and tested Rangers good, Celtic bad, and they don't really have any interest in breaking or developing sources that are going to give them things like Diego.
No, exactly, and they don't get that information because of the relationship or lack of that they have with the club. So, Lawrence, it's been an absolute pleasure again, and YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, keep getting involved. We'll be back in a couple of hours or an hour with Kevin Graham, so get involved. Back onto the ACSOM Transfer Bulletin in an hour's time. All that's left for me to say, Lawrence Conley, is thank you once again for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks for having me.